All of this was part of an organized mentality to belittle, humiliate, intimidate the victims. A level of cruelty that the world really had not seen. You might ask, how could they have been so cruel? So, here's a little known fact. Besides the fact that the Nazis were fueled by hatred, the hatred was their gasoline. They had a weird thing. When Nazis sent warriors into battle, soldiers into battle, they gave them a pill called Privitin. Privitin was to give them energy, to give them a higher level of motivation than they already had. Privitin, chemically, is meth. It's methamphetamine. So the Nazis were a hatred fueled by meth. Hitler abused it. A lot of the leadership abused it. So you have these people who are twisted to begin with, and now they're high. I don't just mean high, I mean meth. And so you get those stories. I'll tell you one. I know a survivor named Anita Carl. Marched with her 3 times. Anita tells this story. She was 4 years old. She and her cousins were in a room in their home, and a Nazi officer came in. And he sat down on a chair, and he held up a piece of candy in his left hand. Held up a piece of candy and said, "Who wants the candy?" And one of the cousins went over, said, "Come sit on my knee." Gave her the candy, and as she's unwrapping the candy, reached in his pocket, pulled out a pistol, and blew her brains out. One story. One story. Fathom 6 million stories. We cannot. We cannot. All we can do is try and know as much as we can know, have as much possible understanding of and appreciation for the victims. And in a way, I mean, if you think about it, there are 6 million victims. How many Jews are there in the United States? About 6 million. So, in a way, we're the links. I don't want to say we're replacement parts. That can't possibly happen. But we are the continuation. So we have the obligation to perpetuate that which they were trying to perpetuate. And I will tell you this. I'm not a chauvinist about being a Jew. I have an appreciation for other people and cultures on a very deep level. But know this about your own. There is no people on the planet who have survived a 2,000-year exile from their land and were persecuted everywhere they live, who returned to their home, rebuilt their nation, worship the same God, and speak the same language that they did 2,000 years before, except one, and that's us. So I would never be chauvinist about being a Jew. But I'll always be proud. Because someone who won't stand up for their own, in the end, will repudiate everyone. So, life is God's gift to us. What we do with our lives, that's our gift to God. I want to suggest that you came here for reasons you don't know, and that this many ways is a turning point for you, because you're adults. This is like literally a place to mark from, and how are you going to move forward? What's going to matter to you? And if you're going to be, look, everyone serves themselves. I think if you don't serve yourself, if you don't love yourself, there's something wrong there. But if you are only for yourself, what are you, really? That's an eternal teaching of our faith. Yemena nili mili. If I'm only for myself, what am I? And so that means to me, the message of this thing is that we have to stand up for anybody who's being persecuted. Not just for Jews. People are persecuted for their race, for their religion, for their ethnicity, for their sexual preference, for their body type, for their, whatever it is. There were perpetrators in this story. There were victims in this story. There are lots and lots of bystanders in this story. Watch videos from the time and you'll see when they're taking the Jews out to be shot. Look off to the side. Don't watch what they're doing with the Jews. Look at the people standing on the rim, on the edge, the civilians nearby, looking, very often happy about the proceedings that were going on. Why? Because they got all our stuff. That's part of it. Part of it was a religious war. They weren't just trying to kill us, by the way. They were trying to kill God, too. And not just our God. They were trying to kill Christ as well. The discussion of what happened with Catholics in particular, you should know that when the Nazis came into Poland, the first people they went after were Polish gentry. They really wanted, more than anything else, Polish priests, leaders, people who could lead the people and sway the people to rise up and stand against the Nazis. So the very first thing they did was get rid of them. Then they took us. Was it Pastor Niemöller made that statement, right? First they came for the socialists, but I was not a socialist, so I did not speak out. Then they came for the trade labor unionists, and I was not in a trade labor union, so I did not speak out. Then they came for the Protestants, and I was not Protestant, so I did not speak out. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out. Then they came for the Catholics, and there was no one else left to speak out. That's an approximation of the thing. Critical factors here, guys. This is about more than religion. This is about humanity. This is the greatest inhumanity of the entire 20th century. And a Jew has a different relationship with it than a non-Jew because we were on the receiving end. It's not to say that other people weren't caught up in it. 500,000 gypsies were killed. And you don't hear a lot about gypsies in Roma much anymore because they did not survive and rebirth themselves the way we were able. I run a summer camp for kids with cancer. Cancer doesn't care about religion, not at all. I have every faith, every creed, every color, every national origin, and I've got a closer group of people than anything I've ever been a part of. And I want to say that everything I do in that place is a fulfillment of everything that our faith teaches. Your Judaism doesn't have to play out just in the synagogue and just on a trip. It ought to inform everything that you do. So there were perpetrators, and there were victims, and there were these bystanders, and there were paltry few upstanders. An upstander is someone who sees something wrong and gets in the way of it. An upstander sees some abusive parent hitting their kid in the mall and has the courage to go over and stop them. An upstander speaks up for the nerd in the class or the kid that always gets bullied. An upstander cares about people who are not them. And my great hope is that that's what you get out of this trip, is that you become an upstander.